Shalom Talmudim. Here we are for a video lecture. It has been a while, so I hope you haven't forgotten the sound of my voice, or shall I say koli, since it's my voice. If you're a Hebrew student, you know what I'm talking about. All right, so let's pick up where we left off in class. I'm also trying to turn over a new leaf and do this video lecture the day after class again. So here we go. So picking up where we left off, we had this translated last night, so you can view the video for that. But picking up where we left off, we have starting here with Hem. So Hem amaru laish shalom anachnu po ki Elohim Natan benecha laka. Okay, so putting that together, we have they said to the man. So who's the they? That's the Yeladim, so the children. So they said laish to the man, shalom. Shalom. So this is where the quotations begin. Shalom. Peace, hello, greetings. Shalom. Anachnu po, we are here. Anachnu, we, po, here. So we are implied here. And then most often you're going to have a explanatory clause for God gave your sons to you. Or you could translate it, Natan has given. Remember, in context here, we're basically dealing with a perfect idea, or even a pluperfect. Had given, has given your sons to you. We are here because, or for, God has given your sons to you. So that is how you translate that. So the whole thing, they said to the man, hello. We are here because God has given your sons to you. And moving on to the next phrase here. So, Tov ba'enei ha'ish va'amar Baruch atah ha'Elohim asher natan habanim ha'ele li. So putting it together, Tov ba'enei ha'ish. So this is the way that you would say it was good or pleasing. So it was good in the eyes of the man. So the man was happy. It was good in the eyes of the man. Notice the tsere yod here. The tsere yod is marking construct. So normally you have the im ending for the masculine plural, but in the construct it becomes a. With the tsere yod. Remember, that's an important change in the construct state. So, ba'ene is in the eyes, ha'ish, of the man. Va'amar, and he said, Baruch atah. Baruch is the word for blessed. So that's typical in prayers. Blessed are you. Blessed are you, O God, ha Elohim. Blessed are you, God, who Asher gave Natan the children, Habanim, the sons, the children, and then you have Ha'ele because it's attributive, these sons. So blessed are you, O God, who gave these sons li, to me. So putting it together, it was good in the eyes of the man, and he said, blessed are you, O God, who has given these sons to me. All right, and I'm just going to go over these quickly, the composition sentences. So these are a little trickier. They rely on knowing the verbs, and we're going to review those in just a moment. But so in number one, I know that the teacher is good, and he says words. So you can say, Ani yodea. Ani yodea would be using the participle form. Ani yodea ki hamore tov. So I know that the teacher is good. Ani yodea is most with yada, the word to know. Normally it's just yode for the participle, but with a guttural at the end, you do yodea. Now, if you were going to do it in the feminine form, you'd say yodeet. Yodeet. So if we go to the charts here, I just want to point that out for the inquiring mind, is that if you are using yodea, and I guess I forgot with the gutturals, you're using the A-class vowels, so it's yodaat, because gutturals love A-class. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. So four words that have the guttural involved there on the last syllable, it's instead of the the segolate vowels don't show up underneath the guttural, and so you're going to have the A-class. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But yodaat. So you could say ani yodaat ki hamore tov. Or if you're masculine, you say ani yodea ki hamore tov. V'hu omer devarim. So, and he says words. V'hu omer devarim. So he says words. Now that's just typical using with the present tense. We typically use the participle. We've been training to do that. But here in number 2, we have a difference. So I said to her, in this case, we need to use the past tense form, or I should guess to be exact, we would use the perfect form of amar. So amar becomes amarti when you say I said something in the past. So amarti lach. So I said lach, the lamed preposition with the 3fs suffix. I said to her, amarti lach yesh li sus. So I said to her, I have a horse. Yesh li sus v amara. But she said, so you don't need to include the pronoun. You can just say amara. Amar would be 3ms. Amara is 3fs. V amara li. So she said to me, li ata hamor. You are a donkey. Ata hamor. Ata hamor. And so that is what she said. So amarti la yesh li sus. V'amara li ata hamor. Okay? So that's how we would compose that. Hopefully that makes sense listening to it. I should write it out, but I'm a little lazy. You can always email me if you want me to translate those, and I'm happy to do that. That's the hardest one. So number 3, we have the house of the book is a good house. So how would we do this? So we have a construct phrase in the house of the book. So bait is the word for house, but into making it into a construct, we would have to say bait. So we do that like this. So bait. And you don't need to have the article on bait because that's going to show up on the next word. So bait ha sefer. Beit HaSefer, oops, there'd be a dog-ish right in the dot there. So Beit HaSefer, the house of the book. So the house of the book is implied a good house. So now we would say bite. Whoa, it's so crooked. Crooked is what I was going for. Bite, and then we do tov. Well, hopefully you can read that. Bait tov. Now, I'm not including a article because it is a generic reference, not articular. So, a good house. The house of the book is a good house. Would be Beit HaSefer, Bait Tov is a good house. Okay, so that's how we would construct that phrase. All right, so good. We can if you have questions on those, we can go through that again at another time. All right, so now just as review for what we're talking about here, I really want you to be familiar with this verb paradigm, shamar. And the reason for that is because this is the default. Now, the thing to remember is that when we're talking about verbs, gutturals are different and weak letters are different. The weak letters are hey now. That's the hey, the yod, the vav, and the noon, right? Hey, yo, vav, noon. The hey now. The hey now letters. So shamar is important to be familiar with because it doesn't have any of those letters. That's why it's super helpful, just the typical way that this looks. So you have shamarti, shamarta, shamart, shamar, shamara, shamarnu, shamartem, shamarten, shamaru. Okay, so that's how we pronounce those. And then the imperfect, following along there, eshmor, tishmor, tishmari, yishmor, tishmor, nishmor, tishmaru, tishmorna, yishmaru, tishmorna. So that's how we pronounce all of those. Now, the reason it's important to know this is the gutturals take a class vowels. So notice the two here, for example. If I put that side by side with amar, for example. Whoops. All right, so moving this over, you see the two highlighted, and then you see the two highlight over here. It's basically the exact same pronunciation, but you'll notice that gutturals can't take just a shava underneath the letter, the aleph. You see that it's a shava plus a patak, and that's because gutturals cannot just take a shava underneath them. So you're going to see this from time to time, and you're like, oh, that's weird, but that's just part of the nature of the beast. Gutturals have those weird things. So you're going to, each time you have a guttural beginning a word, you're going to have slightly different pointings. The pronunciation will largely be the same in this case, but where you see the difference in pronunciation is going to be in the imperfect verb stem. So if you go down here and compare it, you know it's largely different. So you do have to be aware that gutturals are going to take this O class, or I should say the aleph specifically will take this O class. If you have different verbs, there aren't too many variations. I don't want to discourage you by making you think that, oh, each verb is going to be different. No, it's not. There are obviously patterns. The main pattern is the shamar pattern, and that's why you should know that one. Because then the variations on that are explainable by the rules. And in fact, let me just tell you the biggest things to be aware of here. So this is, you need to start drilling this into your mind. So shamar is the normal pattern. So that's the one to really know it. And I'm not saying shamar means no, but you just need to know the pattern for shamar. Now, the things to watch out for are verbs that have hey now letters. So if verbs have hey now letters, then that's going to show up in a variety of ways. That's when you're going to see exceptions. Also, if verbs have gutturals, then you're going to see exceptions. And gutturals, by the way, that's aleph, hey, chet, and ayin. Sometimes resh, but not really for the purposes of verbs. So those four are going to, whenever you see words with that. Now, the hey does double duty because it's actually a hey now letter. It's weak and it's a guttural. So that can complicate things tremendously. But don't be too discouraged. We have other semesters we can talk about some of these things. We're just learning the basics now, and we're going to learn a lot of really good stuff. So the pattern that you want to learn is shamar. And then the differences are going to be found in these two scenarios. There are some tricks and things that I'm going to teach you, so don't worry about that. But let me encourage you by saying that the really verbs are the last thing, at least that we really need to learn in order to just be really, really proficient at reading Hebrew. Now, the discouraging thing about Greek is that you learn all sorts of things, but then all of a sudden just the grammar complexity of Greek just becomes more and more and more. But for Hebrew, it's really nice because the grammar is actually super easy. So the biggest thing is just knowing vocab and then just knowing how the verbs work. And so that's really all there is to it. So hopefully that's encouraging to you, is that even now you're reading biblical verses, and if you just know more vocab and you just know more about verbs, you're going to be able to read so much of the Bible. It's going to be really encouraging. Okay, so shamar is the most important thing to be aware of. So I would just recommend memorizing this pattern. I think that's the easiest thing to do. The thing about the participles, this is what we've learned before. So remember just what I've talked about with regard to feminine participles. Shomara, the sound is typical, and shamar does not have a shomaret pattern, but a lot of the participles do. And so even if you did say shomeret as I put the emphasis on the wrong syllable in the previous one, but shomeret, if you said that, people would understand you, because that's typically how the participle is formed in the feminine singular, is the sound in the feminine singular. There are plenty of verbs that have the shomara pattern to it. So just as clarification, we've talked about that before, but just repeating that for your personal benefit. The imperatives will typically take the shava at the front and then o class at the end. Shamor. So if you were going to say keep this, you'd say to a man, you'd say shamor ze, or shamor et ze. You would say keep this. If you're going to say it to a woman, you'd say shimri ze, keep this. Now, the interesting thing about this is the imperative is actually built on the imperfect. You'll notice that if you just chopped off the prefix, then you actually have the 2ms form of the imperative, shamor, and you have the 2fs, shimri, but you can't have two shava back to back, so that actually just becomes a hirik. So shimri. So that's how the imperatives are actually formed, is just by dropping the prefix on the imperfect verb. So that can be handy for you to know, and that will be helpful for future understanding. So the biggest thing is to be well aware of this paradigm. Be familiar with it. The suffixes are telling you in the perfect conjugation what's going on, who is doing the action, and in the imperfect, it's largely the prefixes which is telling you what's going on. So hopefully that is important and helpful for you as you work through that. All right, I think that's it for this week's video, and we'll see you in class. Keep up the good work.